Stress is not the problem. Your lack of a system is. Most people try to manage stress with vacations or distractions. But for CEOs, creators, and top students, that isn't an option. You need a protocol that works while you are in the fire. 2,000 years ago, Stoics developed a mental framework to remain invincible under the weight of an empire. Today, I am giving you the 5-step Stoic Stress Protocol to turn chaos into absolute clarity. The high-pressure trap. Why modern life feels like a constant emergency and why your brain is overreacting. Modern life bombards you with alerts, deadlines, and rapid shifts. The brain, evolved to react to sudden threats, often treats these microstresses as emergencies. This is the high-pressure trap in plain sight. Small, everyday surprises trigger the same survival circuitry once reserved for lions, floods, or fights. The result is a brain wired to overreact to anything out of the ordinary. Your blood brings energy to the surface. Your focus narrows to the most immediate signal. Your judgment gets crowded out by urgency. Over time, that persistent arousal erodes clarity, slows decision-making, and makes routine tasks feel like live wires. You're not broken. You're operating with a design that misreads the stakes under modern conditions. What makes this trap so sticky are the 3 layers you can separate with practice. The fireproof wall is your boundary fortress. It's the deliberate boundary that keeps non-essential stimuli out when attention is scarce, silencing non-critical notifications, carving real downtime into the calendar, and defining a mental arena where you decide what demands your energy. The noise filter is your editor for input. It sifts signals so you only react to what truly matters, while neutralizing background noise that pushes you toward knee-jerk responses. The rocket fuel turns pressure into deliberate energy. Instead of letting fear sprint ahead, you reframe it as momentum toward concrete action. Resilience is a muscle, not a gift, and these mechanisms train it to contract and pull you back from automatic reactivity. In practice, you can apply the high-pressure trap framework in 60 seconds when things go wrong. Do this now. In 60 seconds, name the trigger and its threat level, a simple recognition that stops the automatic escalation. Seal the fireproof wall by silencing distractions and isolating the issue to a single screen or window of attention. Activate the noise filter by selecting one high-leverage action and postponing everything else. Turn the pressure into rocket fuel by reframing the situation as an opportunity to move one tangible thing forward today. Finish with a quick reset, 2 deep breaths, a check of the next 15 minutes, and one concrete next step you will execute. The goal is to leave the moment with one clear action and a sense that you control the tempo, not the other way around. Consider a client crisis that lands during a busy morning. The message arrives, the room tightens, and the old brain wants to sprint to a dozen fixes. You pause. You name the trigger. This is a high-stakes client issue. You close tabs, mute alerts, and bring the focus to one window, the email thread. That matters now. You decide on one action, draft a concise acknowledgement, and outline the top 3 steps you'll take next. You translate pressure into momentum by reframing the situation as a test of execution, not a test of fear. You breathe, you move, you own the clock. Another example, a sudden budget change during a quarterly review. You identify the trigger, suspend non-essential chatter, pick the single best adjustment that buys time, and map out the first 2 moves you'll deploy. The pattern holds in real life: quick recognition, boundary setting, focused action, immediate reset. The high-pressure trap loses its grip when you practice these microscripts until they become automatic. With repeated use, the fireproof wall, noise filter, and rocket fuel don't just buffer you from stress, they repurpose it. The brain learns that most emergencies are really misinterpreted signals your system can handle with a precise, controlled response. You begin to see pressure as a resource, not a threat. You gain speed without sacrificing accuracy. You develop a habit, a capability, a practiced edge. It's not about denying stress, it's about directing it. And yes, you can do it in the moment, in seconds, with deliberate structure that moves you forward. Step 1. The objective filter. Stripping away the drama. Seeing an emergency as just a set of neutral facts. In high-pressure moments, clarity comes from cleaving away drama. The objective filter translates events into neutral data and keeps you anchored when noise spikes. It's the hinge of the fireproof wall you build around your focus. You seal off reactive emotion so the facts stay visible. Treat an emergency as a collection of observable inputs. What happened, where, who saw it, and what shifted in the system. You train this filter so the first signal you register is not fear but a lean map of the situation. Resilience is a muscle, not a gift, and this is where you begin to flex it. Here's how to apply it in 60 seconds when things go wrong. 0 to 10 seconds. Pause and take a deliberate breath to drop into the moment. 10 to 25 seconds. Reel off 3 to 5 observable facts. What happened, when it occurred, where you are, who was involved, and what immediate effects you can verify. 25 to 40 seconds. Strip away interpretation and labels. Don't let words like disaster or betrayal color the data. Stick to what you actually see and hear. 40 to 50 seconds. Frame the moment as an objective problem with a measurable consequence, and draft one sentence that states the next action. 50 to 60 seconds. Execute that action and communicate a precise, concise update to the people who need to know. The rocket fuel here is turning neutral data into momentum, not more chatter. When a milestone slips, the objective view keeps you honest. Facts. The planned milestone did not land as scheduled. The system shows downstream teams are waiting. Stakeholders have been notified. Interpretations drop away. This is a delay, not a personal verdict on capability. Neutral rewrite. The team will adjust the plan, update the client with a revised ETA, and begin the next concrete steps. In a sudden system outage, facts remain. Service is unavailable, affected regions are known, users report the issue, recovery steps exist. Interpretations fall away. This is not the end. It's a fault to fix. Actionable frame. Assign a workaround, shape a speedier recovery path, inform the key users with a tight status brief. The noise filter keeps you from chasing rumors and avoids leaking fear into decisions. The same framework applies to people dynamics under pressure. A tense interaction can be distilled into observable cues, not judgments, tone, timing, and the concrete request made by the other person. The objective filter converts that into a brief, neutral summary for yourself and for any teammate who needs context. Then you move to action, offer a clear, factual response, set boundaries if needed, and propose the next small step that advances the goal. The fireproof wall stays sturdy because you're not letting the drama write the script for you. You're writing the script from neutral facts. Practice this as a daily discipline, not a one-off hack. Build a mental checklist you run in real time, and rehearse the 60-second cadence until it becomes automatic under stress. Put a short log in your notebook or voice notes. What happened? What are the observable facts? What am I interpreting? What is the next action? That simple routine strengthens resilience as a muscle, turning pressure into momentum. The noise filter sharpens, the rocket fuel fires, and your mind stays clean enough to see the path forward. Step 2. The dichotomy of control. Sorting tasks into what I can control vs what I can't. Stopping the leak of mental energy. The dichotomy of control is a practical rule that splits every situation into two buckets: what you can influence with your own actions and what you cannot. When you treat only the first bucket as worthy of your mental energy, you stop the leak that quality performance cannot tolerate. Resilience isn't a rare gift. It's a muscle you train to flex faster and stronger under pressure. The fireproof wall you build against disappointment and noise starts with this distinction and hardens with repetition. In 60 seconds when things go off the rails, use a lean protocol. Pause and take 2 quiet breaths. This is your calm entry point, not a pause for worry. Then name the elements you can control, like your focus, your speed, your choice of reply, and the next concrete action you will take. List the uncontrollable elements briefly too, and let them fall out of your immediate orbit. These are whether you can't change, not people's opinions, not the exact timing, not external outcomes. The noise filter kicks in next. Decide what deserves your attention and what deserves to be ignored. The action you choose should be tiny, specific, and time-bound. One thing you can do right now to move forward. That's your rocket fuel. Momentum through decisive, observable steps. Finally, seal the moment with a mental fireproof wall. A deliberate commitment not to let irrelevant external noise erode your confidence or spill into the next decision. Real-world examples anchor this practice. You're in a chaotic meeting. You can control your questions, your listening, and your next concise contribution. You can't control the senior leader's mood or the agenda's twists, so you keep your energy allocated to your own replies and the one next action you'll execute after the call. You receive a critical email. You can control how you respond, what you choose to learn from it, and the time you allocate to drafting a measured reply. You can't control the sender's intent or the broader perception, so you release the rest, then act on a single, useful step, perhaps asking for clarification or proposing a concrete adjustment. A sudden change in plan tests you again. You can influence your readiness and your allocation of resources, not the change itself. You adapt, you reset, you move. The practice compounds quickly. When you hit a stressful moment, you default to the 60-second frame, a quick drill to conserve energy and amplify impact. You may not always win the outcome you hoped for, but you win the process. Less rumination, more clarity, faster action. Treat resilience as a repeatable motion, not a rare talent. Your fireproof wall thickens with every repeat, the noise filter becomes sharper, and the rocket fuel burns cleaner. Over time, you'll notice you recover faster, invest energy where it matters, and keep your mind sharp when pressure spikes. The method is compact, but its payoff is consistent. Steadier focus, steadier results, a mind that doesn't burn out under pressure. Step 3. The Pre-Mortem. How visualizing the worst-case scenario actually kills anxiety instead of feeding it. A pre-mortem is a rapid cognitive rehearsal. You visualize the worst feasible outcome of your current high-stakes task and then map out concrete responses. The aim is not to wallow in dread but to strip away mystery and replace fear with a plan. In practice, this acts like a fireproof wall that stands up to pressure, a noise filter that silences catastrophic chatter, and rocket fuel that powers a clean, controlled response. Resilience isn't a gift, it's a muscle you train, and this step is your daily drill. Here's how to run it in 60 seconds. Pause and notice the body, breath steadying, shoulders releasing, jaw softening. Then name the worst-case scenario in one crisp image, something realistically possible, not a fantasy catastrophe. Next, list the top 3 actions that would prevent or mitigate that outcome. Then pick one concrete step you can execute immediately, even if small, like sending a status update, triggering a backup plan, or pulling in a quick collaborator for a quick read. Finally, reframe the moment as an opportunity to demonstrate control, turning anxiety into rocket fuel. The more prepared you feel, the more precise your actions become. For example, during a high-stakes client demo, the worst case might be a slide suite failing to load. Actions: switch to a preloaded backup deck, run a concise live summary, and have a hard stop protocol if timing slips. One immediate step: keep a ready-to-run backup deck and a 1-minute talking script. The mindset shift is simple. You're proving you can stay in the cockpit when turbulence hits. The rationale rests on familiar performance psychology. Visualizing the worst case turns uncertainty into a known quantity, which lowers the brain's threat signal and raises readiness. Mental contrasting plus if then planning create clear action scripts for your autonomic nervous system, so adrenaline becomes a navigator rather than a hijacker. The pre-mortem acts as a filter. You separate viable risk from random noise and you convert fear into disciplined action. Think of it as strengthening the noise filter, so your attention goes to real hazards and practical remedies, not the all-day loop of what-if doom. When done well, it also docks with social dynamics. You're not shouldering risk alone, you're rehearsing communication and rapid decision-making with teammates. To make this a repeatable habit, treat resilience as a muscle that tightens with deliberate practice. Start with a mental template. Identify a critical moment, sketch the worst-case scene in a sentence, extract 2 to 3 actionable mitigations, then lock one immediate move into your execution plan. Use a quick cue, one word or a breath pattern, that signals you to run the 60-second drill. In real time, this becomes your personal fireproof wall ready to rise, your noise filter ready to switch channels, and your rocket fuel ready to push you toward crisp, confident action. With consistency, you'll notice anxiety losing steam and performance gaining momentum, because you've built a proactive shield that you can deploy in the moment. Calm, precise, ready. Step 4. Radical acceptance, Amor Fati. Not just tolerating obstacles, but using them as the very material for your success. Obstacles are data points, not derailments. Radical acceptance treats every setback as input you can run through your system, not a verdict about your worth or ability. The aim isn't passive endurance, it's active harnessing of pressure so it becomes propulsion. The fireproof wall isn't denial. It's a disciplined container that absorbs heat and then redirects it into resilience. You don't wait for calm to act. You convert the moment's friction into a sharper edge. Resilience is a muscle, not a gift, and you train it by choosing what to do next when the world isn't cooperating. When the world throws a curveball, a compact, repeatable 60-second routine keeps you in control. First, center yourself with a deliberate breath and observe what just happened without embellishment. Second, name the event in neutral terms and quantify its immediate impact in your own head. Third, liberate the thought by applying a clean reframe. This is information to exploit, not a signal that you're failing. Fourth, pick one high-leverage action that moves you forward right now and commit to it. The noise filter slides away distracting chatter. No soapbox for blame, no drama, so you can act. The rocket fuel then ignites. The obstacle becomes the energy you pour into a concrete next move, not a wall that stops you. Do this long enough, and it becomes automatic, a reflex that protects momentum rather than drains it. In practice, this approach turns ordinary setbacks into deliberate experiments. A project stalls? You run the 60-second drill, extract the bottleneck, and pivot to a tiny, testable change, perhaps reassigning priorities, revising a deliverable, or securing an alternate path to objective completion. A difficult conversation with a teammate arises? You acknowledge discomfort, neutralize blame, and choose one practical outcome: clarified roles, a faster decision cycle, or a concrete deadline, and you implement it. A sudden change in market conditions hits your plan? You log the new data, reframe your outcome as a learning sprint, and deploy a focused adjustment, even if that adjustment is simply allocating resources differently or changing the tempo of communication. The framework respects reality, then uses it. It treats frustration as fuel, not fuel for despair. To embed radical acceptance into daily practice, couple it with quick, repeatable rituals. Before or after high-stakes tasks, run a 2-minute version of the drill to tune your mindset. Keep a simple cue that signals you to switch to the fireproof wall mode, perhaps a breath pattern, a posture reset, or a phrase you repeat to yourself. Track outcomes not for blame but for feedback, and review what you learned from each obstacle at the end of the day. Over time, resilience stops being an event and becomes a skill you deploy with intention in the heat of the moment. The goal is to arrive at the truth of the situation quickly, then press forward with clarity and force. When you embrace what happens as material for growth, setbacks cease to define you and begin to sharpen you. Step 5. Voluntary discomfort. Training for the fire by doing difficult things on purpose daily to harden the mind. Resilience is a muscle you train, not a gift you wake up with. It expands when you face controlled stress on purpose. Voluntary discomfort is the daily practice of stepping toward difficulty to strengthen the mind. Each deliberate hardship refines attention, steadies emotion, and shortens reaction time. Over time, you build a fireproof wall that stands taller when the heat spikes. This isn't about masochism. It's about deliberate calibration of stress to prevent it from breaking you. To play the noise filter, you treat stress signals as data, not doom. The mind starts noisy. It translates pressure into impulses to escape. By habituating short doses of discomfort, you reduce the intensity of those impulses. The rocket fuel emerges when you convert that calm into action. Discomfort becomes momentum rather than a derailment. The key is consistency. Tiny daily challenges compound into a durable baseline, so when demand spikes you don't burn out, you burn brighter. Here is how to apply it in the moment, in about a minute, when things go off course. 0 to 5 seconds. Identify the trigger and select a discomfort practice you have trained for. 5 to 25 seconds. Enact that discomfort at a controlled level. Think a cold splash on the face, a brief breath hold, or a short, high-effort movement done with precision. 25 to 40 seconds. Shift to the noise filter. Name the sensations, notice thoughts, and remind yourself this state is temporary. Reframe. This pressure is fuel, not threat. 40 to 60 seconds. Finish with a micro-commitment for the next moment. Send a concise action forward, like taking one purposeful step toward the next task or starting the next small piece of work, then breathe and move. Practical integration happens through a simple ladder, not a grand ritual. Begin with repeatable, mild discomfort you can do daily. A cold splash to the face, a short breath hold, or a small deliberate stretch of effort. Progress by slightly extending exposure or adding a mental challenge, such as reading a difficult idea aloud or tackling a task you would usually postpone. Use travel and downtime to push intensity. Resist reaching for your phone during delays. Walk outside in the weather instead of retreating indoors. Choose a longer, purposeful walk over scrolling. The cadence matters. Small, disciplined impulses stack into a robust, reliable baseline you can trust when the stakes rise. The CEO mindset. Decisions over emotions. How to separate your feeling self from your acting self. In fast-moving contexts, decision quality outpaces emotion and becomes the actual leverage of a leader. The brain separates into a reactive engine and a deliberate one, and you can train both to work in harmony. The reactive system screams, the deliberate system reasons, and the edge comes from letting the latter lead when the heat is on. You can notice this shift in real time: a tighten of the jaw, a spike in pulse, a surge of impulses. Then you choose to act with intent, not simply react to the feeling. 3 internal mechanisms reshape this moment: the fireproof wall, the noise filter, and the rocket fuel. The fireproof wall is a boundary you construct between stimulus and response. It isn't denial. It's a buffer that buys time for your higher brain to weigh consequences. The noise filter plays sieve on the chatter, the ego, the fear of losses, the urge to prove a point. It lets only what matters through. The rocket fuel is the disciplined action that follows, the crisp move that progresses the objective despite pressure. Resilience isn't a gift. It's a muscle you flex under stress and practice again and again. Here's a practical 60-second protocol you can run when things go wrong. First, name the feeling without letting it name you. Say to yourself quietly, "I notice fear rising. I am not my fear." That simple label lowers the arousal and starts the separation between feeling self and acting self. Next, run the noise filter. What data actually affects the decision at hand? Distill to concrete elements. What are the facts? What can you influence? What is uncertain? And what is not worth chasing right now? Then draw the fireproof wall. Remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. You can control your next action. You cannot control every outcome. This reframe clears space for a rational plan. Move to reframing as data. What is the objective in the next move, not the next hour? Translate that into a single, clear decision criterion. For a CEO, it might be minimize downside risk while preserving momentum. Now pick the smallest viable action that satisfies that criterion. It could be sending a precise ask to a key stakeholder, canceling a non-essential meeting for the day, or issuing a one-sentence directive that aligns the team. Execute with clarity. This is the rocket fuel. Short, decisive, and unambiguous. Finally, close the loop with a quick debrief. What went well, what remains uncertain, and what the next microstep is. If you can do all of this in a minute, you've effectively turned a potential derailment into a controlled maneuver. A concrete example lands this in practice. Suppose you get a brutal performance miss from a major client during a high-stakes call. The feeling self screams defense and urgency. The acting self steps in with a snap judgment that could burn bridges. You slow. You name the emotion, then filter the noise. What are the verifiable numbers? What commitments exist? And what is the client's top priority right now? You recall the fireproof wall and lean into the dichotomy of control. You can adjust your offer. You cannot erase the missed metric instantly. You reframe as data. The objective is to restore trust and secure the next commitment, not to win a verbal spar. The decision criterion becomes maximize the chance of a continued partnership with minimal concession. The action is a crisp, well-structured reply that acknowledges the miss, asks for one concrete next step, and proposes a short timeline for follow-up. This is the rocket fuel in motion. After the call, you log one observation for future steps and one action for the next 24 hours. Resilience is a muscle, not a gift. Each moment you practice separating feeling self from acting self, you deepen your capacity to stay in the driver's seat when data and emotions clash. The framework travels with you, on the plane, in the office, or during a tense investor update. When pressure hits, you lean into a routine that reduces noise, hardens your focus, and accelerates decisive action. The result isn't merely surviving the moment, it's turning pressure into propulsion, keeping lines clear, and moving toward the objective with steady speed. This is how high performers maintain agency under fire, time after time. Peace is the ultimate competitive advantage. Master the protocol. The protocol rests on 3 repeatable moves you can execute in under a minute. Recognize the trigger, reframe the threat, and commit to a single decisive action. Peace is the ultimate competitive advantage. Master the protocol. When pressure spikes, your brain looks for shortcuts. You don't have to surrender to noise. You can tighten the system and stay lucid. This isn't mysticism. It's a practical toolkit that compounds with use. The more you train it, the steadier you become under fire. The fireproof wall is in your mind, not in the room. It's a visual boundary you lean into when chaos rises. See the momentary blast of stress like a gust trying to push you off course. The wall absorbs the wind and keeps your spine tall. You keep your feet rooted and your shoulders relaxed. The noise filter sits just behind the wall. It screens incoming stimuli, prioritizes signals that matter, and dampens the rest. Notifications hush for a minute, colleagues' voices fade to a crisp outline, and you listen only for the next reliable cue. The rocket fuel is what you do next. One precise action, chosen with clarity, executed with speed. It's not busy work. It's the minimum viable move that proves you're in command. These three models work in harmony. The more you use them, the more automatic they become, and the less your inner weather swings. In practice, the 60-second protocol unfolds like a compact performance drill. Start by naming the trigger and anchoring your body. Feet planted, spine straight, jaw unclenched. Then breathe in a box pattern. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, for 4 seconds each, cycling 4 to 6 times as needed. This is the noise filter doing its quiet job, turning up signal and turning down static. Next, reframe the situation with a single truth you can control: your response. Remind yourself that the external event is partly real, partly perception, and that your choice remains intact. This cognitive cue locks you into the fireproof wall. Finally, choose one decisive next move that advances your goal. It should be small enough to start immediately but consequential enough to reset momentum. After you act, assess the result quickly and adjust if required, but don't stall. The protocol is your onboard autopilot, not a plan you study for tomorrow. You'll see this play out in real life when a pitch stalls mid-sentence, a teammate drops a surprise obstacle, or a plan veers off track. A top performer uses the protocol to stay calm, then pivots fast. In a sales call, the trigger could be a tense silence. The response is a confident question that keeps the dialogue moving and protects your credibility. In a competition, you might feel the crowd breathing down your neck. The response is a measured cadence and a single, powerful move toward your target. In a creative sprint, fatigue shows up as a messy brain dump. The response is to pause, filter, and commit to one next line that advances the project. The discipline is the difference between panic and precision, between burnout and peak execution. Resilience is a muscle, not a gift. It grows with deliberate practice, tiny repetitions that stack into reflex. Daily, run the fireproof wall, the noise filter, and the rocket fuel in microdrills. 60 seconds before a meeting, 60 seconds after a setback, 60 seconds at the top of every hour to reset. Each session reinforces the same 3 moves, so they feel familiar when the heat is on. The payoff isn't a dramatic moment of enlightenment. It's a reliable rhythm you carry into every challenge. Peace becomes a scaffold you stand on, not a place you visit. And when peace is constant, performance follows. You won't just survive the moment, you'll own it. You're in the arena. The Stoic Stress Protocol gives you a durable edge when the room goes loud and the clock keeps ticking. 3 pillars carry you: the fireproof wall, the noise filter, the rocket fuel. Resilience isn't a gift you're handed at birth. It's a muscle you train, daily, in small representatives and big moments alike. If the moment hits and you need a 60-second reboot, run this. Pause and breathe to lower the arousal. Name the 1-2 things you actually control in this moment. The fireproof wall goes up. Frame it as data, not doom, and tell yourself you choose your response. The noise filter sweeps out the static and you extract 2 facts and 1 constraint. The rocket fuel converts that pressure into 1 high-leverage action you can take right away. Do that action, then lock in a micro-win as your momentum anchor. That sequence turns panic into precision, fear into focus, chaos into direction. You've trained for this moment. You've built habits that compartmentalize the noise and redirect energy toward impact. You don't wait for permission. You own the signal and respond. If this lands, drop a like, subscribe for more elite drills, and share your 60-second reboot moment in the comments. I'll be reading, and I'll reply with tweaks tailored to your field. In the next sessions, we'll dial this even deeper. Live coaching angles, real-world stress tests, and more ways to turn pressure into performance. You're not chasing excellence, you're sustaining it under fire. The fireproof wall, the noise filter, and the rocket fuel are your toolkit. Use them, and your future self will thank you.